Hey, what's up? So let's talk about gearing. Specifically, I want to talk about getting full exotic gear in any stat combination. This has always been a huge pain point for new players, and I've covered bits and pieces of it in previous videos, in the beginner's guide video, but that was pretty much the complete basics. There was a lot I missed, I was quite brief, and I still get plenty of questions regarding where to get gear. I mean, I made a whole video talking about how the gearing process is super complicated for new players, so I thought I'd do my due diligence and, make a whole guide dedicated to it. More specifically, I want to create a straightforward path for you to follow as you gear your character and work toward that perfect build. Now, I'll be covering how to get a full set of gear that can be stat selected. Stat selected being the key word, because while some stats, like Berserkers, are cheap enough to buy outright on the trading post, some most definitely are not. So this will cover gearing for any builds you might want to run, including newer stat combos like Vipers or Grieving for condition builds, and Harrier or Diviner's stats for support builds. These are used a lot in endgame builds and typically require high crafting levels or buying them off the trading post for a very high price, which isn't very new player friendly. I was actually writing this as part of my Ascended gearing guide, which is the next tier up, and exotic gearing was going to be this brief little blurb before the meat of the video, but as I wrote it, it got way longer than I anticipated, so I've decided to split this up into 2 videos. A lot of the methods that I'll be going through for getting Ascended gear require you to do instanced PvE content, and for those you'll basically want to be in full exotic gear beforehand. That guide should be up in the next week or so if you're interested in that, feel free to stick around. So, you've just hit level 80, you're naked and afraid, and you're looking to get into some endgame content. If you're looking for non-expansion stats like Berserker's gear for power DPS builds, you can farm the gold and buy them from the trading post or get them from the dungeon vendor. I covered this briefly in the beginner's guide, and I also briefly touched on how to get started making gold to be able to do that. Something I didn't include though, which is very important to note, do not buy the gear listed as Berserkers or whatever in their name. What you want is the named items, which are far cheaper. Basically, there's gear that has those Berserker stats, but they have a unique name. There's a list on the wiki for these, so I'll include that in the description below, as well as have it up on the screen. For any and all stats in the game though, End of Dragons excluded, there's a few methods here. I covered a little bit of it in the beginner's guide as well, but I want to properly go over it here. So again, the trading post. There's a few bits of cheap stat selectable exotic armor that you can buy. I'll have them up on screen. This includes a helmet, shoulders, a back piece, and some weapons. For everything else though, we're going to farm events around the first map of Heart of Thorns, Verdant Brink. You'll earn airship parts and also crowbars, which you use to crack open these caches for even more airship parts. You'll need to farm a bit of XP to unlock the Itzel language mastery so that you can talk to this vendor, who you'll be able to buy bladed gear from, which is stat selectable. Right-click the piece, hit customize, and pick the stats you want. Note, he does not sell you the chest piece. For that, you'll need to do the Verdant Brink meta event and complete it at the highest tier, which can sometimes be difficult to do these days. Just check the LFG every now and then to see if there's a group running it. But because it's a little bit difficult to find groups doing this, I would recommend doing ranked PvP. Look, I see how hard you're cringing right now. I know, it's scary, but trust me, all you have to do is complete that first PvP League chest for the Warlord armor box. You need to earn 60 pips, you get 10 for wins, 3 for losses, 5 for near wins. And I mean, who knows, you might even enjoy yourself. But seriously, if you do find that you enjoy the PvP in this game, you can keep playing ranked for even more Warlord armor boxes. These are all stat selectable. As a bonus, these chests also contain raw gold and transmutation charges for transmog. And you can also work on your PvP reward tracks at the same time, which can also contain more stat selectable gear, skins, transmutation charges, as well as other goodies. All right, now time for stat selectable exotic weapons. There's those Iron Legion ones on the trading post I mentioned earlier, but if your weapon isn't included there, then you'll need to find another source. I almost canned this entire video because I could not for the life of me find any cost-effective way to get an exotic weapon with any stat you want. But alas, I have found a way. We're going to head back over to Heart of Thorns. Honestly, this feels like the gearing expansion at this point. You'll want to head over to the final map, Dragon's Stand, where you can buy yourself the plated weapons from this vendor. For this, you'll need map currencies from all 3 previous Heart of Thorns maps, but they're quite cheap, so it shouldn't take you too long to get these, just farm events on previous maps. The reclaimed plates you get for salvaging rare reclaimed weapons. You can just buy these off the trading post, or you might have looted some yourself while playing on the Heart of Thorns maps. Now, this plated weapon is only rare, but guess what? Picking one of these up will unlock the machined weapon collection for this weapon type. This is kind of like a side quest. To purchase these 3 vendor items, you'll need to grind some more XP to unlock the other 2 language masteries. And after that, you'll be able to trade with the Highlek, Exalted, and New Hawk vendors to be able to buy these parts for each of the map currencies. For the other 2 parts, you'll just need to buy the corresponding oiled orichalcum weapon component from the trading post for a couple gold, then go charge it at a hero point. The final piece you'll get as an RNG drop from the Noxious Pod caches in Dragon's Stand. A little tip, each of the map meta events give a bonus daily chest where you can select the option to give you more map currency and cache keys. This all might sound a bit complicated, but just keep at it. You'll be earning both XP and currencies in tandem, and in return, you'll get a free exotic machined weapon, which is fully stat selectable for less than 4 gold in cost. Keep in mind though, this is one time only for each weapon type, but for your first level 80 character, this will suffice. For trinkets, this gets a little weird, but just follow along. Go to your achievements panel, then under collections, you'll find specialization collections. Find the collection for your End of Dragons elite spec. It'll be somewhere in the description. I think they also have unique icons, but there you'll find an exotic stat selectable amulet, ring, and accessory. These are probably the cheapest and easiest to get exotic trinkets in the game. And for the other 2 slots, it's a little more tricky. You might have to buy temporary gear just to stay in there for now, because you're actually better off skipping straight to Ascended for those, and I'll cover that in the next video. So you're probably just going to grab whatever's closest in the trading post, anything that you can afford that's at least somewhat close to the stats that you're going for. Speaking of which, upgrade components. Very important. These are essentially attachments to your gear that give you very powerful bonuses. I cannot understate how important these are. Runes are plugged into armor and basically allow you to create your own set bonus. You might be familiar with this from games like WoW. These are typically crafted, so if you can't craft, you'll probably want to buy them from the trading post. You'll need to do a bit of research in regards to which set of runes you want for your build, but my general recommendations are the following. Superior runes of the Eagle for power damage. A full set of these will only run you about 2 gold. Superior rune of the Nightmare for condition damage. You can buy this from the dungeon vendor with the dungeon currency after doing the Twilight Arbor dungeon. And Superior rune of the Monk for more healing and boon duration. This is actually one of the best support runes of the game, so you won't actually have to replace this at any point. And you can buy this from the dungeon vendor after doing the Ascalonian Catacombs dungeon. Recently, there was an update to the dungeon currency, so they all use a universal currency now. You don't need to do any specific dungeon to earn currency to buy these runes. You can just do any dungeons, but you do need, I think, all 3 explorable paths completed for each of those. Keep in mind, you will always want to run 6 of the same rune. Do not try and mix and match. You'll find that it does not pay off, so always aim to try and grab the full set for maximum value. Sigils are slotted into your weapons. These give you either flat bonuses or sometimes on-proc effects, all sorts of things, like making your weapon summon a lightning bolt every few seconds when you crit, or triggering flame blasts in an area, all sorts of things. 2 can be slotted into a 2-hander and 1 into 1-handers, but you can equip them into both the main hand and offhand for 2 total sigils. These do not stack together, as in you can't put 2 of the exact same sigil on the one weapon set. Again, you'll want to do some research into these, as some of them can be a little bit expensive, but if you don't know what you want, then some key ones are the following: Superior Sigil of Force and Superior Sigil of Air for extra power damage, Superior Sigil of Bursting and Superior Sigil of Malice for extra condition damage, Superior Sigil of Accuracy for a flat plus 7% crit chance, and superior sigil of concentration for a flat 10% boon duration increase. Finally, there's gemstones, which are slotted into trinkets. A lot of people tend to forget these, me included, but you need to slot these into your exotic trinkets to get the most out of them. Whereas ascended trinkets, for example, you don't. They just have the full stats. Now, if you go to the trading post, you'll find these under other in upgrade components. There's a lot of them, and they have all sorts of weird names, so here are my suggestions. Exquisite ruby jewels for extra power damage, black diamonds for extra condition damage, and exquisite snowflake for supports. One last thing I want to note is that while you're doing all of this, you'll want to keep an eye on your stat sheet. This is just in your normal hero panel, you've probably seen it, but just hover over those stats on the right. Here, you'll be able to track your numbers going up. It's good to track this stuff because you'll have more of a tangible connection between the gear that you're putting on and the damage or healing that you're putting out. Precision will determine your crit chance, and as a DPS, you'll want to get to as close to 100% as you can. This is actually one of the only games I've played where you can actually get to 100% crit chance, so take advantage of that. Keep in mind that in group content, and even in solo content, if you've got access to this boon, you'll more than likely be permanently under the effects of Fury, which provides you a bonus 25% crit chance in PvE and 20% crit chance in PvP and World vs. World. There's a lot of unique class traits that can bump this bonus even higher. So basically just open up your stat sheet, keep an eye on that crit chance, and apply some Fury to yourself every now and then just to see if you hit 100%. That is the goal. Try and hit 100% crit chance under the effects of Fury. For condition builds, obviously, keep an eye on condition damage, but also on expertise, which lengthens the duration of your conditions. And for supports, you'll be paying attention to healing power if you're a healer, and concentration for boon duration. That's a lot of words. I know it's very annoying that they all have very unique names, but just hover over them and you'll see the effects. A great way to measure the impacts of your stats immediately is to just hover over your skills and compare how much those numbers change as you equip better gear. So yeah, that's basically it. You're now fully geared in exotics. That is essentially all the gear you need to complete your build and be able to jump into endgame content. If you've followed along, then congratulations. You're now ready to dive into things like raids, strikes, fractals, all that juicy stuff. The world is your oyster. I mean, technically, you could have jumped in with any gear you want, but you might have had a rough time. So I hope this at least gives you the confidence to join in on those groups in the LFG. Remember though, gear is just half the puzzle. The rest of your build comes from the traits and utility skills you decide to equip. So do a bit of research and find a build that piques your interest. I want to specifically shout out two channels, Maisel MMO and Mr. Mystic. They both run Guild Wars 2 channels that have very excellent builds with really simple rotations, and they both break them down to be incredibly easy to follow. I highly recommend you give them a look. Anyway, that's the video. In the next one, I'm going to cover Ascended Gearing, where we'll be doing a lot of raids and strikes and fractals and that sort of thing, which you're now prepared for. I hope this video helped you out in some way. If it did, maybe consider helping the channel and giving this video a like. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything or you've got some extra questions. I try to read pretty much every single one of them. As always, feel free to stick around for more Guild Wars 2 videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.